Hey everybody, it's Andre from the Eaglesoft Field Guide, and I'm here with a longtime fielder, Mary May from General Dental in Alaska. Hey, Mary, how are you?
I'm great.
Cool, and it looks like it's nice and sunny there.
It is. I actually had to pull the shades because I think it would have blinded you.
Well, that's okay. I'm like a lizard. I love sitting out in the sun, so I can enjoy it. So what we're going to talk about today is, and you guys have probably seen, I've done a bunch of videos on charting, but one of the things Mary and I have been talking about is advanced charting for offices that do implants, offices that do sleep apnea and sleep studies, those kinds of things. So a little bit more intense, a little bit outside the just basic stuff, but the idea of basic sort of overlay with this, because almost every office, if you place implants or not, are still going to see your patients who have overdentures, who have implants, who you might be just replacing the locator rings every now and then for them, but you know, it's a good practice to know all this stuff long term. So we're going to dig in. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
Cool. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to open up a blank chart, and I always start with my first patient on my list here, who's always Hank Aaron. God bless him, not if he's gone. I have to give credit. And I'm going to open up this chart, and hopefully it's going to be a blank chart. Bada bing, there it goes. Okay. So first things first, whenever you're talking about implants, you're talking about even dentures, the best thing that you can do is get your code set up properly ahead of time so that they're doing the things you need to do. Because one thing with dentures, I see a lot of offices where they don't even put tooth numbers on dentures, which even sounds a little weird. But if you go, okay, it's the whole mouth, so I can just select mouth for a denture. The problem is it doesn't remove it from the charting. It doesn't show it as a non-functional tooth. So if a patient has a partial, that means it's going to not skip the teeth when it comes to perio charting. So we want to make sure we're setting that up. When it comes to implants, we want to make sure that those implants are marked as non-functional teeth, because then it shows up differently in the perio charting and allows you to make a choice if you want to chart around it or not. So that's the
Hey, you
start.
just solved one of the problems that we've been running into.
So I'll dig in deeper and show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to open up the service code for the basic D6010 implant and edit that code. And eventually it'll pop up here. There it goes. And go make sure that your implant body is set up to tooth. And under chart setup, all right, I've got an implant cylinder, and right here it says non-functional tooth. And 90% of the time, what I find is that if people have not set this up properly, it's not doing what it's supposed to do. The other thing, and this is actually something, and I learn something new every day. If the office has extracted the tooth, it doesn't come back if you place an implant there. So yeah. So this is one weird thing where if you have extracted a tooth, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Let me see if I can do it here. Let's extract this tooth. Extraction, existing. Let's just save it that way. Okay. Now I'm going to open up the perio chart. And you can see eventually that tooth is missing from my perio chart. So it's gone. All right. It's red. It's not going to let me chart. So let's go back and let's put an implant in there. And implant. Ooh, actually, wrong implant. Let's put the implant that we know is the standard implant that everybody has. All right. And we're going to save that. And let's try my perio charting again. Come on. Guess what? It's allowing me to do it now.
Andy.
Yep. So but you can see it's grayed out, but you have to be really careful. If you've charged out an extraction, now I can't charge one out because I'm not on a real database, but if you charged it out, it will not allow you to chart that because you've already done an extraction. You can do it if you marked it as existing, but it won't allow you if you do it as a completed. So if you did have a completed extraction, you actually have to right click, and right here you have to restore the tooth before you can then chart a placed implant. And it only happens if you did the extraction in the office. So you have a completed extraction. You can't chart around a implant that's been placed. So again, this is all setup stuff, but if you don't set it up properly, you're going to be back in the field guide yelling to figure out how to get this fixed. So let's also talk about sequencing. If I have an implant there, and then I go and chart a overdenture, guess what? It's gone. So let's do a full lower here, lower all denture. All right, if I were going to be proposing this, I'd be showing the denture first. My dentures look a little different than everybody else's, but same idea. And then I'd go back and I'd chart my implants. There we go. So the idea is the implants have to be on top of the denture. Otherwise, the denture is going to hide the implant. And then what happens is typically an office will actually will actually propose the implant twice. Have you seen that happen?
I've experienced things not being sequenced appropriately and skipping over something in an initial treatment plan phase, which is kind of a bummer when you go back and you're like, oh, I hate to say there was one thing we missed, but this will be necessary for treatment, and sort of having to have that conversation over again with new numbers. So, and
we're never talking small numbers when we're talking implants.
I mean, I try to always give estimates with ranges to sort of cover that potential, but I really like to be as precise as possible because I think it can instill a lot of confidence in your patients.
Yeah, and a $10,000 treatment plan doesn't sound when it gets to 12,000, it's amazing how much different that is, and you're just adding one unit, so big deal. So yeah, if you just sequence it this way, and I know it doesn't look necessarily correct, but if you sequence it this way, you're going to wind up being able to see things a little bit better. Now, when it comes to adding things like your custom abutments and your locators and things like that, that's when we want to talk about things like custom draw types. And I have got a lot of custom draw types in here, but just to give you an example, everybody's seen the build-up draw type that I do, which is just really a block. I'm going to use that same build-up. I know it's not the right code to be using here, but I'm just going to use a build-up on number 28, just to show you that if you add an item on here, you see that little item that showed up on top? Now I can actually see that there's something else going on, and I can see the difference between 20 and 28 just with that little difference. And I'm going to edit that and change it to existing, just so if anybody's having a problem seeing it. So, but that little bit of change makes all the difference to be able to see that there's something else, like you said, that might have gotten missed in the process. Yep. So simple things like this, layering things on. Actually, if you're doing exploding codes where you're doing an extraction, you're doing the implant, you're doing a bone graft, you're doing the custom abutment, and then the crown, make sure you sequence it in such a way that the crown doesn't wind up on top of the implant and actually hide the implant.
That's good to know.
Yep. So I always kind of do things backwards, because if you do it backwards, they layer in forwards. It sounds weird, but I used to even do that with exam 4 bite wings and Profi. My exploding code would be Profi bite wings fluoride exam, so it would actually go back in the sequence I liked it. So,
can I ask a quick question about the charting of the overdenture?
Yep.
So, if you were to utilize a previously fabricated denture that had already been walked out and the patient was a fan of it, and then you add the implants, it would show up like you just had it, correct?
Exactly. Would.
If you were to fabricate a new denture to go over those implants, and the implants have already previously been walked out, then there is it would not draw correctly.
It won't draw correctly, but let's do that. So imagine these are existing implants. All right. And for whatever reason, this person, now we went to an all lower denture on here, and I know my denture is not going to look correct, but so now it's hidden. what you need to do is go back and bring to top those implants.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
And that
Yeah,
will,
that's what I catch myself doing a lot, but I think maybe the sequencing thing could help a lot.
yeah, it makes all the difference in the world. And, you know, what I'm trying to do, and, you know, like during COVID, we're still during COVID, but, you know, March of 2020, I dug in and really started redrawing these things because I wanted it to work in such a way that as you add services, you did not lose those details. So, and that's why you can see my dentures don't have a lingual side because I'm starting to
Yeah,
use some other things for it. To
sure.
me, it made too
Building
much sense.
detail.
Exactly.
Very cool.
So now I actually have in my implants, so I've custom drawn implants. So I have an implant body for a denture. And that implant body now does not draw over the denture. So again, just like you were saying, I want them to layer. So even if I have my denture first, my implant layers on top of it. And I can go to my implant again and find a locator. And I'm going to make that proposed just so it stands out. And see my locator now sticks on top of it. See it?
Yeah.
Yep. So the idea behind it is, when I started thinking about it, I said, there's got to be a way for me to actually make these drawings so that no matter what sequence they go in, they kind of show through each other. And it took a lot of thought. I mean, I had to draw it and erase it and start all over again. But I set it up so that I can actually see what's going on. Let me actually change patients and pull up somebody who actually has some implants here. Won't save Hank. And let's see what her chart looks like. So this gives you an idea. So here's somebody with a all-on-4. They have custom abutments. All right. And I can tell this tooth, there's an existing implant crown. There's no custom abutment. There's an implant. They have a bone graft and a sinus lift.
Wow.
So again, the more we layer, the more we can see. And I can even tell, these are, obviously this is an all ceram setup, but I can see what's going on with this patient. And again, the natural teeth are so much more obvious because I'm not going to be doing any lingual restorations on these implant crowns, but I can definitely tell if I'm doing some restorations up here because this person's got veneers to be done, up here.
Of course.
Yeah. So they have a partial upper, they have a implant at the upper, but an all-on-4 at the lower. So the more you kind of think these things through, the more you can kind of figure out what's going to happen. But to me, and the reason I got to this point was it really was all about layering, figuring out what needs to be done to layer the next step, the next step, and the next step. Let's see. I'm going to open up somebody else and see if I can see what else. I think this person's got some implants here too. And again, each office has different systems they're using. So I can see here, this actually has, and it's really hard to tell, and you guys aren't going to be able to see. And this is actually an old version of this, but I can actually see there's this color and this color are different. So I actually have blue locators, I have red locators, and I have yellow locators. So I can actually tell the weight of the locator that's going on.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So if somebody, especially as an assistant, if I'm assisting the doctor and I'm thinking, oh, this person, their denture's loose, well, they've got a blue one and they need a yellow one, or, whatever it is. So we can actually introduce some more colors once we get to a point where, I can finally get this stuff dumped into people's offices. Think that would help?
Definitely.
Yep.
Speed up everybody's life a little.
Exactly. And honestly, all I did, when I'm going to go down to draw types. And what I did was I just took the implant cylinder. And yes, I want to create a new drawing on this implant cylinder. I just took this, and anybody can kind of do it. If you just take your drawing tool, and I know I'll use this one. It's going to be a little sloppy here, but I just kind of did something like that on the top of my implant. And that's a little too big to show my locators. Now you can't make it in different colors. It took me a little while to figure out how to do that. But you can do something. Let me do a little bit more like that to show that there's a locator, and that can be how you kind of draw an implant locator. So this implant would already be there. The new implant would show on top, but it would have this sort of block on top of it to show that there's a locator there. So
you're blowing my mind a little bit. I'm going to rewind. So you can stack the same code with different names.
Yep.
So that you can have another level of differentiation or specificity. Okay, yep. That's amazing.
Yeah. And you just, again, goes back to sequencing. I have to make sure that implant is there first. And then now this new implant drawing with the block on it goes on top of it. So that one now has the locator on it. And then I could put a crown on that or, whatever, and now I've got a couple of different levels of information there. But sequencing is the important thing. Because if I put a denture on top of this, it's gone, no matter what. But if I put the denture in first, now I'm good.
That's great.
Yep. So, and again, the more you guys can think about this, the more it will help. And no matter what, the more you can add to the level of detail, the better off you're going to be. And just to give you an idea, let me just open up another patient here. Click. And actually, I'll just go back to Hank. Because one of the other things we were talking about is seeing a patient who might have some airway issues. So one of the things I always do is anytime somebody has any kind of guard, a sleep guard, occlusal guard, whatever, I always put it on tooth number 1 or put it on the upper arch. So under guard, I've got a snore guard. So see that? It's got the Z's across it. All right. That was a little bit more crazy way to put it in there. But I can tell that person's got a snore guard that they're wearing. All right. And now on number 25, I can actually go in here and do a condition. And I can say that actually it's on number 24. I actually have to put it on here so I can see it. They actually have that they're wearing a CPAP. Okay. And all I did was wrote the word CPAP over number 24 actually I wrote it over 25 in the charting, but I wrote it backwards. This is how weird I get. All right. But I can tell that they have a CPAP. Now, let's go back and
does that condition only exist for that tooth?
Only exists for that tooth.
Okay.
Yep. But again, it's just showing a condition in the patient's mouth. So, but I just know that I have to put it someplace center so I can see it.
Sure.
And now I have another one called airway issue, and I connect that to both 24 and 25. And all I'm doing is just layering information, and all that is a circle. So all I did was on 25 make a half circle, and on 24 make a half circle.
Wow.
So now I can see that they actually have some sort of airway issue there. So I can see they have a guard, they had they're wearing a CPAP, and they have an airway issue. And everybody should know that if I take this CPAP, edit it, all right, I can say that person's not wearing it anymore. The condition is no longer present. And now look what happens. It graded out.
Okay.
The patient stopped wearing their CPAP. All right, which happens all the time. So
yes.
This is, like I said, really quick, and they still have an airway issue, but they just stopped wearing their CPAP. So
that's awesome.
The more that you do, the more that you can see, the easier it is. And just so everybody knows, if you just want to make this easier, grab my airway issue patient here. So I've got an apnea patient. You want to make it easy to do the same thing. Look down here. See there's a green bed. It lets me know that person had their sleep study done. All right, that means that they have a CPAP. So all I did was just make patient alerts, and the same thing you would make for, only wants to see Barb, the hygienist, or whatever for a patient alert. Just make something like that if you really want to just have something quick and easy to see. They completed their sleep study, and they have a CPAP. So all I did was just found an icon for like a hotel bed.
Sure.
Like the lodging icon, and just made a little icon, and I made 3 of them, a yellow one, a green one, and a red one. So, they said, no, I'm not going to get a sleep study done, or they had a sleep study done, but it's old for the yellow one, or yeah, they have a current one. So whatever the office is looking for, you can just make up a patient alert for that.
How do you get your patient alert to show up there?
Good question. So let's go to the front office. Let's go to list, general setup, and patient alerts. So here is my sleep study pending, sleep study refused, sleep study completed. So I actually have these 3. All right. And there's my bed. And I said, use it in the virtual clinical screen. Okay. And
Amazing.
no pop-up. So no pop-up, because otherwise everybody's going to ignore it. And see, refused is red. And pending is yellow.
Very cool.
Yep. And like I said, this is the low-tech, easy way to do the same thing, where you don't necessarily have to do all these draw types. So you could just have your patient alert, which almost everybody who uses Eaglesoft knows how to make a patient alert. Just put it on the clinical screen so that your clinical crew can see that. There may be some situations where you want to see it at the front office, like saying pending. You could put that on the appointment. And now the front office can say, hey, Mrs. Jones, did you ever get that done?
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. And just so everybody knows how I make alerts, how I make those icons, literally, I go out to Google, I go to my Google Images, and I just type in for an icon. I just say like lodging icon. I think that's the one I stole. So I just take that image and I just colored, use Microsoft Paint to make the background red, yellow, and green, and save that as my icon. And it just has to be 32 pixels by 32 pixels, and it has to be a bitmap format. But you can make anything into an icon. It always works best if you look for an icon, because once you start making them smaller, they lose the detail.
Right.
Yep. But that's how I make those icons. And I think I have probably 600 or 700 of them. So, yeah.
How many years?
20 plus years of doing this.
Okay.
Yeah, 20 plus years of doing it. And
still a lot of icons per year.
Yeah, it's a lot. But the beauty of it is, and like the newest one, there's my COVID.
Mm-hmm.
But the more you do, the more you realize that they help. And so many offices ignore some of these things, like we're talking about with charting. If you don't see it, you miss it. If you don't see that there's custom abutments to be built out, they get missed. And there's a lot of money there. And that's a big apology you have to make for your patients. So what else would you like to look at?
My goodness. Maybe implant bridges?
Okay. So implant bridges are kind of a weird one. So let me go back to my first patient. And this is one of those things where if you place the implants, one thing, if you are, charting the implants, another thing. So let me get out of that. Okay. So really what you want to do is, place your implants first. All right. Then go back, place your implant abutments. And let's just take abutment supported PFM. We'll use this one since it's right there. All right. And then go back and put your Pontics in. The beauty of the Pontic is it's the same Pontic you do for a bridge. And that's it. So, I've gotten a little fancier with some of my drawings just because this, where it doesn't connect, drives me nuts. So I've gotten a little bit more fancy with them. But for the most part, that's it. Just showing where the attachments happen. That's really all you need to do. But that's the bulk of it. Let me see. Yeah, and you can see I actually have a lot of these extra Like I have this now implant bridge Pontics and implant bridge PFMs, just
Mm-hmm.
because I wanted to actually have a special drawing for these things so that they looked a little differently. But again, you don't need to do all that as long as you have what you're looking for.
Very cool.
Yep. And one thing, especially with implants, let me just show you an example. So let's just, and I won't make it an implant, but no matter what it is. But so here is just a regular bridge abutment, and that goes on the distal side. All right. And then imagine if it's a 4-unit bridge, but it covers 5 spaces. So this is not really an actual unit.
Oh, okay.
Here's my Pontics. All right, because this happens all the time. So this tooth was extracted, but this is all drifted forward. So what I actually did is I created a condition called closed space.
Okay.
Okay, so it lets me know that there is no tooth here. All right, but there is a space that is closed. So what I did was I just created a condition using the Pontic drawing. But these little arrows let me know that the space has been closed.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a quick reference that this is actually a 4-unit bridge that covers 5 units. And if you wanted to, you could say that this is drifted mesially. So you get little arrows over there to show that whole bridge has been moved forward.
Well, that's slick.
Yeah. But that's a
Cool.
great way, especially like for me, I was a front desk person, to me to look at this and go, okay, how come they didn't charge out that Pontic there?
Mm-hmm.
Now I see why.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Yeah. And if we goof and forgot to put the implants in there, that's right, this person had implants, they didn't have natural teeth. Just make sure you bring to top those crowns. So if you forget the sequencing and you mess up, you can always go back and fix it.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. I think that covers a lot of scenarios.
Yeah. And like I said, there's so much that you can do and so much you can see, but the biggest issue is don't think that this is going to be exactly anatomical. Just think you really want to be able to look at it and say, oh, that's what's going on, and then be able to dig a little deeper. The picture should tell you that there's something to look for there, and then be able to dig a little deeper to find out what's happening. All right, because if
Mm-hmm.
little things that I find in offices where they haven't utilized a lot of the tools. Like imagine if this implant is failing. All right, simple. Go in here and edit that implant. All right, and mark right there that the implant's defective. All right, nothing else that you have to do. Just make sure that it's highlighted in such a way that you can tell there's some issue going on, and now you can figure out what to do about it later on. But utilizing the tools that are already there, the work is defective. There are other conditions that are going on. Even if there's an abscess that's happening around that implant, making sure that you show it so we can see what's going on.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, I'm glad you found some interesting tips there. I can't imagine what your next project's going to be.
I think I'm going to have a lot of fun running through a bunch of different charts and getting them up to snuff.
That's cool. Well, and let us see what you do, because it's all these projects are a lot of fun, and I love seeing what people come up with workarounds. And if you have something that's really cool, let me know. I'd love to see what it is. Or if you have an idea that I don't already have, let me know, and I'll make sure that I do a version of it and drop it in your computer for you.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you, Andre.
Good luck with it, and I thank you for doing this.
Have a great day.
You too. Thanks.